Welcome, everyone. We'll give others a few more minutes to join. But while we wait, I can answer some of the questions that were submitted during registration. So one of the first questions is, can we access data for a widget via a GraphQL API call? This is not possible at the moment. This would be a cool idea for a future improvement, and I would definitely recommend you post that on our community page so others can vote on it. And sometimes our dev team can kind of give other ideas to do the same thing that you're trying to do. So if you post it in there, what information you're trying to pull in, we might be able to help you a bit further. Someone asked about setting up an invoice to match QuickBooks. Unfortunately, today we won't be covering the invoice custom widget. It does exist, but because it's pretty complex, we just won't have time to go over it. I saw that you had been working on it. I'd seen some tickets coming with some questions. Definitely keep submitting your questions to us. But for you, as well as anyone else who's working on that invoice widget, we did just announce our Sprouts program. And this is a really great use case for that program. So with Sprouts, anyone with a team site can schedule a free 30-minute consultation call with us to discuss your use case. And then for quick projects that can be completed in less than an hour, we'll do it ourselves for free. Most use cases fall into this category, but for larger projects, we'll help design and detail that scope of work and then recommend a contractor who's been trained and vetted by Grist. So that might be a good option if you're looking to use that invoice widget. I know there's some information on how to use the invoice on our help site, so definitely check that out too. But if you're right and you have any questions, let us know. One of the questions was, if we had two spreadsheets, each with a widget, can you pull info from widget A into widget B? And you can do that. I created a little example for you that can be linked in the chat. So I basically built an example from one of our existing tutorials. So we have instructors and then we have the classes that they teach. And these are two separate tables. We have the instructors table and this classes table. We have our list of instructors and then details about the instructors. So the card underneath the table has the rest of the information. So for the instructors, we have their name, phone number, email, and then we have this formula column, which I'll talk about in a second. And then we have a classes card, which lists out the class information. So it also links the instructor. That instructor field is what we call a reference column, and it points to a reference in the instructors table. Here we see it's a reference column pointing to the full name column of the instructors table, and it points to all of that information in the instructors table for that selected instructor. So for Jim Stars B, the instructor is Rusty, and it actually pulls in his phone number, and that's through a formula. If I changed the instructor, it would change the formula. And so this uses that reference column using a dot notation formula. Thank you for linking that article. And so using the instructor column to pull the phone number for that record. And so that auto populates as soon as you fill out the instructor. And now we can pull information backwards. So for each teacher, I pulled in the classes that they teach. And that's using a lookup records formula. And so we're looking the other way using that instructor ID. And then the semester is hidden, but all of these classes are fall semesters. And then I pulled in the class name. So you can see what each instructor is teaching. So this example is linked in the chat. And then the article on references and lookups is also linked. So definitely check out both of those. It is kind of a complicated topic, but I feel like the article does a good job, and then feel free to support or post in our community if you have any questions. As we're setting it up, if there's not getting the right information, feel free to send us some screenshots and we can help you along. Another question was, how could I control the printer download from an embedded widget? If you have access rules on a document, Restricted users can't download the entire document's data. And for an embedded document, anyone is able to download what is visible in the embed. So not the entire document, but just the partial data that they can see. Do you have plans to integrate with Integromat.com? We don't at this time, but we do actually have a thread in the community where users can share what third-party integrators you would like to see. So definitely add that one there, and then others can go vote for it as well. We can link that community post in the chat. And then someone asked about different access rules based on user email. Webinar 6 covers access rules in depth. So you can find that recording on our YouTube channel. And there's also a really specific topic that we can link to in the chat as well. So I think that one's just a shorter 5-minute video that covers that topic. Someone asked about how to use Grist for my own data. Again, we announced the Sprouts program, which is for anyone with a team. And we do set up that consultation call. And in that 30 minutes, we could talk about your use case and what the best way to move forward is. After that call, you might feel comfortable yourself. At least it would give you a path forward. And if not, we can certainly set you up with a contractor who would be able to help you out as well. But I definitely think that 30-minute call could benefit you just in getting started. And can we build forms to be able to add more logic or conditions? Native form support is on our roadmap, but you can use a third-party integrator to integrate a form builder with Grist, someone like Zapier or Pabbly Connect. We work with quite a few. I think there's 4 or 5 integrators listed on our site. So definitely check those out. Okay. So let's get started. Hi, everyone. Welcome to our April webinar. This is our 7th in our series. You can find previous webinars on our YouTube channel where we have a dedicated playlist just for it. And then a recording of this webinar will be added there as well, typically within 24 hours or so. And today we're going to be learning how to make and use custom widgets. It's really fun. I've been having a blast working with them. So I created an example for our webinar that is available at a link in the chat. Feel free to follow along with it. The example that's linked does have all of the fields shown. So when we're setting up the widget, don't get overwhelmed by those. On my page, I have them all hidden. So when you're looking at the Zoom call, you'll see as we build it. The scenario I built this example around is that I'm hosting a party for out-of-town relatives, and I wanted to create a list of activities for them to do while they're in town visiting me. And then I also wanted to be able to print some mailing labels for invites to them, as well as thank you notes for after they leave. So I have all the data I need for widgets in this table, and as we walk through the different widgets, I'll walk through what columns of data are used. And so we're going to start off with our activities table first. That's what you see here. I have activity, address, phone number, website, and then some details. I want to make it look less like a spreadsheet, and I want to make it where my family can flip through the different activities that are available. And so I'll create a new page, and that's just going to be an activities card. And then we'll add all of our custom widgets from there. So I'm going to add a page, add a card just for activities. Here we go. So I had a lot of these fields hidden, so it'll look better as we add some widgets. I'll be able to hide some of these fields and make it a lot nicer. So we'll start with the image viewer. It's probably the easiest widget to set up. It's very straightforward. So to add a custom widget, under the green Add New button, we select Add Widget to Page. And now we select Custom. So we're going to be doing this through the whole webinar. It's just going straight to this custom one. And then Activities. So we select By. That just means when you select By, it'll show records or data only for that selected record. So since we're using a card, it's only going to show information for the card that's currently being viewed. And so now we've got our custom widget. I'll move it down here. custom widget, we just select from the drop we want to do. And for this first one, we're going to use the image viewer. It'll tell you what kind of access it needs. Most of the time, it just needs to read the current table. If it needs to make any updates, then it would need access to the full table. And we'll see an example of that, but it'll typically just tell you what it needs. And then we actually need to pick where our image URL exists. So for image, it is looking for a URL, so the image does need to exist somewhere on the web. And then I have this in my image column. So here we go. It already pulls up the image. And so what this looks like in the field is I just have this link. And again, you can get any image from the internet. So if it's on a Facebook page, an Imgur account, or I got mine from Google. So I have this Google image search up already for Chalmette Battlefield. You find the picture that you want and you click it. And again, this is where on the internet, and you just select copy image address. And that copies that URL that you need. And then I can paste it in here with Control V, and it updates the picture. So again, any image that exists on the internet, you can put in here. If it's on your Facebook, on your business school site, whatever, just right click, copy image address, and paste it here. That's it. That's the image viewer. So it's really easy to set up, and you can use any image on the internet. If your image doesn't exist on the internet, just throw it on a Google Drive or some other image site and just copy that link. So next, let's add my personal favorite widget, which is the map widget, so people can see where our activities are. Again, we just go add new widget to page using that custom widget. And we're going to select by because we want to see how, where we're viewing in the, it'll be highlighted on our map. And again, we just select our widget from that dropdown. So we'll select map. And it wants to read the current table. Now for this one, I actually already have the latitude and longitude already in there. But there's a really cool way to do this. It finds it all for you. So we'll walk through that here in a minute as well. But for now, we'll just fill in the fields, and then I'll walk you through those. So name, that is what your little label is going to show on the map. And for me, I want it to show the activity name. Longitude, it is required to have a column that's longitude and latitude. And there is a way for Grist to find this itself using geocoding. And that's what I'll show you next. It's already been done on this particular example, but I'll show it on the other page. Okay, so longitude, match up longitude, latitude, match up latitude. Now, if you already had a list of latitude and longitude, this would be all you need. But if you want Grist to do it, then you need to have a couple other columns. So geocode, that's a toggle column. And if it's true, meaning it's checked like you see here, it means that the system will geocode the latitude and longitude for you. Again, mine's already done, but if I were to change the address, it would check that address against this geocoded address field, and then it would update the latitude and longitude accordingly. So geocode, again, that's that toggle column. Address, I already have that here. It is just the address of the activity. And then geocoded address is just a text column, and it starts off empty, and then it fills itself in after it's geocoded the address. And when address and geocoded address, which is, here it is, if they don't match, it'll find a new latitude and longitude for you. Currently they match, so it won't be doing anything, but I will show it to you in a second. And so it's all set. Let me walk you through how it does all that. So I've got this other page, which we're going to go through stuff over here in a minute. Let me add a couple columns because we need all 4 columns. And so the columns that we needed for the map widget were lat, long, geocode, which again is that toggle column, and then geocoded address. So we need to set this to a toggle type column because we want to be able to mark them all so it knows to check all of them. And then I can use a formula to actually set this so that it checks all of them. And if I just set it to true with capital T, it'll check all of them for me. Okay, so let's add that map widget because we already have the column set up. And I will move it below so we can watch it work its magic. Okay, so again, we select that map widget. Now we do need to change the access level again because it needs to update our table. It needs full access. I'll change it so that we can see it kind of do everything all at once. And the name for this, we'll just pick the name column, longitude, latitude. Again, these columns are blank, so it's not doing anything yet. Geocode, that's our toggle column. And again, we have them all marked as true. So once we give it the proper access, it's going to geocode anywhere, any record where the address and the address don't match, which at this point, none of them match because there's nothing in the geocoded address column. Okay, so nothing's happening because we have the proper access. As soon as I give it full document access, it's going to start working. And we see that it's finding the latitude, it's finding the longitude. Now it's stuck on this one because of this extra little bit. We'll take that out. And then it keeps running. And so now I actually have all the latitudes and longitudes. It's copied that geocoded address to change the address in any of these columns. It would then go check it again and find that geocoded address and update latitude and longitude. And so now we've got it. So that's how it works on the back end. So if you don't have to go find all the latitude and longitudes, just set up your 4 columns. Make sure the geocode column is set to true. And then once you give it that full document access, it'll do it all. It's pretty cool. So let's jump back over, new page, where my map is. So the last thing I want to show you with the map custom widget is this open configuration option. So you can actually view all locations, which if I click through my little card, even with all locations selected, it'll show me which one is the selected card. So here's the museum, there's Fort Proctor, but I can change it to only show one at a time. And so I just uncheck all locations, save that filter, and now it just shows me the only one that's selected and it doesn't show the other markers. So that is our map widget. Again, it's my favorite. The fact that it can find the latitude and longitude for you is pretty cool. Okay, so now that we have all of those, let's clean up our, do you need to any URL? You don't. So for it to appear, you just have to go in this custom drop down after you add the custom widget, select map from the list. That technically is a URL that maps to the widget that was built out by one of our developers, but it just has this handy little name so you know exactly what it is. And then you fill in. As long as you have that address, you can do everything else. Yeah. Cool. So let's clean up our real quick. So that part is nice and organized. So with the card, let me start from the beginning here. You just click this edit card layout and you can add fields, you can remove fields. We're just gonna make it look a little nicer. And now that we have our map, we don't need the map fields. We don't need our image field. And we're gonna cover details next, so I'll hide those as well. The map just shows points. Okay, so we have a couple different ways to display formatted text using custom widgets. So we're going to add each of them to our activities page here and then compare the differences between them. So again, we're going to start with Notepad. It's actually our newest widget. It just went live yesterday. So it's kind of the first time anyone's seeing it, unless you have been playing with widgets the last couple days, then you might have seen it yesterday or today. But we'll go ahead and add it. New widget, again, custom activities. We want to select by because we just want to see the details for the selected activity instead of all of it all at once. Here we go. And so I'm in our dropdown. And it needs full access to this document. So accept that access. And you pick the column you want it to pull from. So I have already messed around with this. I already have a details column that has used this. So what Notepad does, it is a WYSIWYG editor, meaning what you see is what you get. This is what you see in other word processing apps. You just highlight the text, make any changes, and it does it right there for you. It's the easiest formatting widget we have. You edit directly in the widget. So let me show you what this looks like in the actual column, and you'll realize you never want to edit it there. So this is what the text actually looks like, which is crazy, but that is what it's doing on the background. So you don't need to edit it in the table, just edit in the widget, and you can just keep that column hidden. And then you don't have to see it. But you can do quite a bit with this. And you just format using all of these icons available. You can also copy paste pictures into it. So I copy and pasted this picture directly into the widget. And then you can also remove formatting. If you're working through it and you put extra formatting and you don't like it, just the text. And that's what this last button is here, the TX, that removes all the formatting. I just want to point that because undo, it won't undo, it's just kind of done. And you would have to re-add the formatting. So the last button removes all formatting. Just keep that one in mind. And that's the Notepad app. It's very easy. Everything is right there for you. So let's take a look at the next option, which is the Markdown custom widget. So Markdown is a lightweight markup language that you can use to add formatting elements to text. It is a superset of HTML. So any HTML file is valid in Markdown. So that means you can use all of the features of HTML to add tables and other elements. But at the same time, you don't have to use HTML and you can keep it simple and reasonable. So let's take a look at that one. So in our list, we just select the Markdown widget. And then again, I've already set up the column here with the formatting. So I'll select it here. It's my Markdown details column. And there we go. It looks really nice. You can edit directly in here. So when I click edit, it actually shows me all of the coding that I've done. And I can make any changes directly in here. If I want to remove my horizontal rule, I can change the header. I can make all of those changes directly in here. It's very simple, very clean. Now, if you've never used Markdown, that's okay. There's this handy little question mark button, and that opens the Markdown guide. And it'll actually walk you through how to do basically anything that you could want to do in the widget. It shows you how to mark a heading level. Now it shows it in Markdown and HTML. So you can use both because Markdown is just a superset of HTML. So you can use both within the widget. Markdown is just cleaner. And so it does go through and show you how to do all of these different things within that little guide. So all you do is click that question mark and it'll show you how to format things. Now, one of the things I'll show you here is that I added this picture, and if I click edit, I have all my Markdown up here, but then down here, this is HTML. And I actually got this directly from the guide. So if I go to images, because I want to add an image, this is normally what you would use, is this little bit of code. But I wanted to resize. And here I have a little section on resizing. And it gives me the HTML. So it says Markdown doesn't have any syntax for specifying height and width. But again, you can use HTML. So the guide is your best friend. It's really great. Now, what if you do want to use HTML? We do have that option as well. So let me pull that one up. Add another custom widget. Put them side by side so we can see them all. Okay, so now we have this HTML viewer. Select my column. Again, I had this already set up. So my HTML and my Markdown look exactly the same. It just uses HTML versus the Markdown formatting. The key thing with the HTML viewer is that it's just that, it's a viewer. You cannot edit within the widget. So you would edit within the table. So here I've got my HTML column and I can make any changes there and then they would be applied in the viewer. But let me show you what HTML looks like compared to Markdown. And you can see, again, remember, these all look the same. If I click through, they look the same, but one uses HTML versus Markdown. And you can tell that the Markdown one is just a lot cleaner. It's easier to read versus the HTML formatting. This is all in the formatting. The two viewers, they look the same. The nice thing is, again, though, that the Markdown one, you can edit directly into. But with the Markdown one, you can also use HTML. So if you're using HTML and that's what you're comfortable with, but you want to be able to edit within the widget, you can use that Markdown widget. And then, let me show you. So now it's using HTML. It's using my HTML column. And it's using all the same information, but now I can edit directly into the widget. So those are your three different formatting options. You can use the Notepad, which is the WYSIWYG editor, just like editing in Word or Google Docs. And then you have the Markdown widget, which you can use HTML or Markdown. And again, we have that Markdown guide. And then you have the HTML viewer, which only uses HTML, and you cannot edit within the widget. So those are our three options. We're going to add the Markdown one to our little dashboard here. So again, select your custom widget, give it the access, and then you select the content. So I've got a nice little activities dashboard that my family can flip through when they come visit of all the different activities. They can see where it's at, read about it, and of course, see a nice picture. So we can actually move on now to creating these labels, because I said I had to send out these invitations, eventually some thank you notes. So we'll jump over to this addresses table. Let me hide all the stuff that we used before for the map. Okay. Now we actually have a widget for printing labels. So we'll go ahead and add another custom widget to our page. Okay, so with this, I want the print labels widget. It needs to read the current table. Okay, that's great. And now I need to actually select columns. So the label text is what's going to be printed on the label. So I created this label text column. When I set it up, I had my names and then I had to go find addresses. Papa Smurf didn't have one, so I have to go back for that one. But I just combined the two using this formula. So it adds the name column, it adds a new line, and then it adds the address. So I will use that within the widget because it'll have all the information I need. And I select that. me move this over too so we can see the whole thing. And then now you have this option for label count. Now it's optional. If you don't select it, it'll just print one of each. But you can have a numeric column that then says how many labels you want to print. Since I want to do invites and thank you notes, I definitely want to print more than one label per person. I'm going to add this column. And I do already have it in my table. Let me pull that up so we can see it. And it will add the number that you have here. So for the first, I have 2. And then for the next, I have 2. 0 for Papa Smurf. I don't have his address yet, so I don't want to print those. And I can change the number and it will update the number of labels that are on the sheet, and it does that live. So if you need to print more than one label, this is the way to do it. Just add your label count and you can update it as you go. It also makes it easy to remove people. You can just put a 0. Another cool thing you can do with this is actually add blanks at the beginning. So maybe your label sheet already has some labels that were used. You can just leave 5 blank ones so that we start on the next unused one. You can also change this based on what type of label sheet you have. So if I only have 10 per sheet, I can adjust that and it shows me my labels in that format. So a lot of cool things that you can do with this, and it's pretty simple to set up. The one thing that I did briefly mention but didn't actually show was this conditional formatting. I set this column up to turn red if I didn't have an address for someone. This is a fairly new feature. So if you haven't gotten to use conditional formatting, it's quite fun. And so in this column, under cell style, you can add this. I'll go over how to leave those blank. Let me jump back to that real quick. To leave blank, just click this little wheel icon and you can change however many you need blank, whether it be 3, 4, 5, use 7. But if you have a full sheet, just change it back to 0. But again, all you're doing is just clicking on this button. So for the labels, they are all centered. The width of the text is centered, but then within the address, it is left aligned. So if you look at all of them along the left, they'll all be aligned, but they do center the full text within the label so that they take up the right amount of space so nothing falls off the edge. So it's kind of a mix of center and left line, if that makes sense. So with this conditional formatting, again, it's under your column options and then under cell style. So you add a little formula. So the formula has to be true or false in order to add color. So if the length of the address is less than 1, meaning that does one exist or not, then it'll turn red if it's not. So if nothing exists in that cell, it's going to be red. And that's why for Papa Smurf, I have a nice red box, but everyone else, the address is, so it's there. If you're ever working with conditional formatting, you're not quite sure what your formula should be, feel free to just jump in the community and post, and we can get you an answer as quickly as possible for that. Once you start using it, it'll start making sense what the formula should be, but I know at the beginning I had to think through it. So that is our label sheet. So we have a couple more that I want to show you that are real general, that you can use in a variety of different ways. The first one is going to be a copy to clipboard widget. Again, add widget to page, we use that custom button. And then under custom URL, it's going to be this copy to clipboard. It needs to read the current table, okay. And then you need to tell it what column do you want it to be copying for the record that you have selected. So the record is this whole row. What column for that row do you want? to be copied. For me, I'm going to copy their address because I might need to use that in another application. And it will copy anything that's in there. That's it. All you do is select what column, and it's already set up. So I copied, Control V, paste, and now it's there. If I had clicked into it, it would add both lines. There we go. This is really useful for email address fields or employee IDs or other information that you might use in another application. Just copy the text, paste it into the other application, and continue to do whatever work you're doing. It's really great for those types of scenarios. So always know that's there, always there for you to use. It's just copy to clipboard and then select which column you want copied. And you can make it really small. It can just kind of go in the corner underneath things, so it's not in your way. And then another widget is going to do two different functions for us. That's the action button. And you see this little help page that we're going to get into. So again, add our custom widget. And then here is the action button. It does need full access. Again, it'll tell you what access it needs, just accept. And when it says full access, it has whatever access you have as the user. So then we have to have a column that contains this action formula. So I do technically have this set up, but we're going to delete it and redo it. So, oops. Let me jump to this action button help. Okay, so we have two action buttons we're going to go through, which is the duplicate record button and then remove record button. So starting with the duplicate record, you do need this formula. So I have this little cheat sheet here. It has the formula for you and then what things need to be replaced and what you're trying to find when you're replacing it. So here we see that the first one's column name, and that fills in the little statement. So here we go. So like duplicate record, Jake Blues, that's the name. So we would then replace that column name with name. And then down here, we've got the table name, which replaces with the table that you're trying to duplicate information in. And then the rest of this, the column A equals column A, column B equals column B. Those are the columns that you're duplicating. So let me copy this and we'll walk through it on our page here. So I paste it here and you can see it changes everything we want to change, most of it into black. So it does stand out a bit more for you. So here's that first column name, and that's changing this description. So duplicate record blank. We want to show the name here so we know what record we're duplicating. So replace column name with the actual name of your column, which for me is just name. And then we continue down the line. The action is actually to add the record. And where are we adding that record? It's going to be in our addresses table. So addresses, and you see it populates that one for me. And then what columns are we going to duplicate? So you need to know that we're duplicating name, and the name column is pulling from, or the name is pulling from the name column. It's kind of confusing because I know that the, like here it's in quotes, and then here it has the column symbol, which is the $sign. Know that those two are equal. So name is name. For column B, it's address, and address is equal to address. And you're just replacing all the caps. So column B name is getting replaced with address. And then now it should be good to go. We've got name, we have addresses as our table, copying the name column and the address column. So now we'll scroll down a bit. We'll highlight poke variances. I duplicate that record. and it's duplicated all the way. I didn't want to duplicate label count because you might not want to in that instance. You don't have to duplicate all the columns. It's up to you. Now remember, label text was a formula column, so that's going to run that formula no matter what. So I didn't need to duplicate that. So I just had to duplicate these. So pretty easy. The hardest part with this is getting that formula. So that's where that little cheat sheet here comes in handy. It's just replacing the column name, replacing the table name, and then the column names that you want to duplicate. So be sure to replace all of those. Now let's walk through the remove record button. So again, we go to add new widget. We'll put these both under here to make. Okay, so again, we're doing that action button. And I do have the column set up, but we'll walk through it again. Go back over to that help column. I'm going to copy this formula. And then I'll find that here. There we go. So I can just paste that new formula. So here's a lot easier. You're just replacing two things. Here is the column name. And again, that's what's being read right here. So delete record blank. We want to pull in the name. And it's showing me the name from, I hadn't deleted the formula yet. Copy pasting, I hadn't hit enter, so the system doesn't know, or doesn't know that I'm changing it right now until I hit enter. So that's why you still see it down there. So that's the column I want to show. And then the table name again is address. There we go. So that's all you have to change for deleting a record. It doesn't need to copy anything, so it doesn't have to have that extra information. Okay. So now that's updated. So I can select my record, I can duplicate it, I can select the record, and I can delete it. Now, if it is the last record in your list, it's going to show you this little message, but that's just because nothing's selected at this point. If I select this Pope Francis and delete, there you go. It's just deleting. So Pope Francis, delete, select it, and delete. It's very easy to use, again, once you have it set up. Feel free to save this little like cheat sheet, I call it, on your own page so that you have it handy. But that is the action buttons. So I know we covered a lot in this webinar. Again, we'll post it on our YouTube channel, but would like to open it up for questions. Oh, you're welcome. I'm glad you enjoyed it. I know it was a lot of information all at once, but we have a lot of fun widgets. You are all very, very welcome. Yeah, any questions, let me know. If you guys are off building widgets later and run into questions, feel free to post in the community. It's a great place because other people can see and they probably have a similar question, or if you find a real cool use for a widget, definitely post it there. If you do have license sensitive data in there, feel free to email us at support. We're always there as well. We always just say community so other people see the same answer. But yeah, I hope you guys have fun building all your widgets. Why would you need to duplicate a row? What would be the use case for such a feature? So I'll use my labels as an example. If I have multiple people who live at the same address, but I want to send an invitation to each of them individually. I could just duplicate the address and some of the other information, especially if you had it broken out into street address and then city, state, zip code. Then you could just duplicate all of that all at once. That's just, one simple use case, but if you do think of some really good use cases, though, feel free to post in the community and be like, hey, I was working on this and found that the duplicate record worked great for it. That would be a good one. With delete, you can also just right-click and delete a record. So that's an easy way to do it as well if you don't want the widget. Sometimes it's nice for both. If you have a lot of users who are using the page, they might not think, oh, that would be a good idea to just copy it and continue my work or delete it. It's just an easy way because out of sight, out of mind. But if it's right in front of you, especially with the copy text, you're like, oh yeah, I can just hit that button and I copied the employee ID and I can go use it elsewhere. So it's more for that. Duplicating a record, it's easier to just hit the button. We are trying to where you can just right and do that. But for now, the button works great. But deleting, you can right click and delete if that's easier for you and you don't want the widget on your page. And same with copy. If you just click into a box and Control C, that would copy. Not all users are quick with the shortcuts, so that's why having a button can be nice. Awesome. Any other questions? If not, have fun building your custom widgets. If you are a coder, you can actually completely create your own custom widget. It is kind of in depth, but we do have some instructions on it on our in our help center. So definitely check that out if you are up to the challenge. And would love to hear how you're using some of these. So feel free to share that in our community.